10 years ago, this was something everyone talked about, so it feels strange now that it barely comes up, especially because of how serious the consequences were back then. Desi Arnaz Jr. was born on January 19, 1953, on a day that millions of people were already glued to their television screens watching Lucy Ricardo give birth on the show I Love Lucy. That timing was not an accident. It marked the start of a life that would never feel private or normal. From the very moment he was born, cameras were there. His arrival was treated like a television event instead of a personal family moment. Photographers crowded the hospital, reporters waited for updates, and the public felt like they had a claim on him. Even as a baby, he was placed into the spotlight without any choice in the matter. His crib was taken onto studio sets so staged family photos could be taken for publicity. Looking back, Desi Jr. has said that he often felt more like an object being used for promotion than a real child being cared for. By the time he was 7 years old, he saw something that shattered his sense of safety and permanently changed how he viewed his family and the world. What followed were years marked by drug use, emotional breakdowns, and deep pain that eventually led to a suicide attempt when he was 28 years old. The things he has recently shared about growing up as the son of Lucille Ball have shocked many people who only knew the bright, happy image shown on television. Lucille Ball herself entered the world long before fame, on August 6, 1911, in the small town of Celeron, New York. For her earliest years, life felt calm and loving. That sense of security vanished suddenly when her father, Henry Durrell Ball, died of typhoid fever on January 1, 1915, just days after Lucille turned 3. The loss happened so quickly that, as an adult, Lucille said she never truly understood what was going on. One moment her father was there, and the next, the world felt silent and empty. Her mother, unable to support the family alone, took a job as a factory inspector during World War I. That meant Lucille was left in Jamestown to live with her grandparents. She only saw her mother on weekends, and even those visits felt too short and too rare. That separation created a deep sense of loneliness in Lucille that stayed with her throughout her life. It shaped her need for love, stability, and belonging, and it pushed her to create a life where she felt truly connected to others. When Lucille was 10 years old in 1921, the family moved to Montana. Not long after, she faced another challenge that would leave a lasting mark. She developed severe rheumatoid arthritis and was confined to bed for nearly 2 years. The pain kept her body still, but her imagination stayed active. To help pass the time, someone would bring in a borrowed projector and play Charlie Chaplin films for her. She watched them repeatedly, studying every movement, every pause, every funny stumble. She copied his walk, his timing, and the way he used his body to tell a story without words. Those films became her escape from pain and boredom, something joyful in days that felt endless and heavy. Years later, Lucille said that those moments saved her spirit when she felt trapped in her own body. Without realizing it, she was teaching herself the skills that would later make her one of the greatest physical comedians television had ever seen. By the time the 1920s continued, Lucille's home life changed again. Her mother remarried, and the feeling of stability she hoped for still seemed just out of reach. In 1927, when she was only 15, Lucille made a bold decision. She left school and moved to New York City to try her luck in modeling. Life there was harsh and unforgiving. She worked as a Chesterfield cigarette girl at the American Tobacco Exposition, standing on her feet for up to 18 hours a day. She earned just $30 a week, which would be about $500 today. Her feet ached constantly, and there were days when she barely had enough money to eat after paying rent. During breaks, she auditioned for acting roles and faced rejection again and again. People told her she lacked star quality and that she would never make it. Still, she refused to give up. Eventually, the John Robert Powers Agency signed her, something that was rare for someone so young and for someone who had been turned away so many times. Those early struggles taught her how to survive disappointment and keep moving forward even when every door seemed closed. In 1932, Lucille tried her luck on Broadway using the name Diane Belmont. She rehearsed for weeks to appear in Earl Carroll's Vanities and believed she had finally found her big break. That hope was crushed quickly when she was fired after only 2 weeks because she arrived late from a modeling job she still needed to support herself. One conflict in her schedule erased the opportunity she had worked so hard to get. After that, she moved from job to job, taking whatever work she could find. At times, she slept on friends' couches and questioned whether New York had any place for her at all. Even so, she refused to quit. Losing that role taught her how unstable the entertainment industry could be, but it also pushed her to become stronger and more determined. In 1933, she landed her first film role as a Goldwyn girl in the movie Roman Scandals. She earned only $50 for the entire production, which would be about $2,100 today. Most of her time was spent doing synchronized swimming routines in cold water while more established actresses received attention and praise. Her role required her to smile, swim, and blend into the background. Watching others stand in the spotlight only fueled her desire to be seen. She auditioned constantly, telling herself that one day she would no longer be hidden behind others. That same year, at 22, she signed a 7-year contract with RKO Pictures for $75 a week. Her early film roles were uncredited, and many of the movies were low-budget productions. She often played chorus girls or small comedic parts. RKO dyed her hair blonde, creating the look that would later become iconic. She became known as the Queen of B-movies, a title she carried for years. While those films were not glamorous, they taught her timing, discipline, and how to use her body for comedy. Every small role became practice for something bigger she felt was coming. In 1936, while filming Follow the Fleet with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, Lucille twisted her ankle during a dance scene. Instead of stopping, she completed her scenes on crutches. Her determination did not go unnoticed. Hollywood admired toughness, and she proved she had it. The film became a success when it was released in February of that year. Lucille remembered pushing through that pain as proof that she was stronger than she realized. When World War II began, Lucille dedicated much of her time to helping others. She volunteered at the Hollywood Canteen, which opened in October 1942 and welcomed millions of servicemen and women before closing in 1945. She served food, danced with soldiers, sold war bonds, and did everything she could to lift spirits. Though her acting career slowed during those years, her commitment to supporting the troops became an important part of her legacy. In 1948, everything changed again when she entered radio with the show My Favorite Husband. She played Liz Cooper, a lively and mischievous housewife, and her energy captivated listeners. She recorded 124 episodes over 3 years, putting her whole body into the performance even though it was only audio. The show became a hit and opened the door to television. CBS was hesitant to show her real-life marriage to Cuban bandleader Desi Arnaz on screen, fearing audiences would not accept it. To prove them wrong, Lucille and Desi created a live stage act and toured the country. Audiences loved them, and CBS finally agreed to a television pilot. On October 15, 1951, I Love Lucy premiered. The show used 3 cameras and filmed in front of a live audience, a groundbreaking idea at the time. Millions tuned in, and the show quickly became a national obsession. When Lucille became pregnant, the writers chose to include it in the storyline. On January 19, 1953, the episode showing Lucy Ricardo giving birth aired just hours after Desi Arnaz Jr. was born by cesarean section. More people watched that episode than the president's inauguration the next day. Nearly 3/4 of American households with televisions tuned in, making it a cultural moment unlike anything before. By the mid-1950s, Lucille had reached incredible heights. She and Desi formed their own production company, bought a major studio, and Lucille became the first woman to run a Hollywood studio. Her success was groundbreaking, but it came at a cost. For Desi Arnaz Jr., being born into this level of fame meant never having a normal childhood. From his first days, he was surrounded by attention, expectations, and pressure. His parents worked long hours, and much of his upbringing was left to nannies. While the world saw a perfect family on television, behind the scenes, Desi Jr. felt lonely and unseen. As he grew older, the constant attention followed him everywhere, leaving little room to simply be a child. This unusual upbringing shaped his struggles later in life and revealed the hidden cost of growing up in the shadow of one of television's greatest legends. His first appearance on I Love Lucy came in 1956 during a Christmas episode, when he played toddler Ricky Jr. in a nativity scene. What should have been a sweet and joyful moment turned into something frightening for him. The bright studio lights hurt his eyes, the attention overwhelmed him, and the pressure made him panic. He suddenly burst into tears while everyone watched. That moment stayed with him for the rest of his life. It marked the beginning of a deep discomfort with being pushed into public view before he was ready. Even as a small child, he learned what it felt like to perform instead of simply exist. It became clear very early that his childhood would be nothing like that of other children. Expectations followed him everywhere, even before he understood what they meant. Because Lucille Ball worked constantly, Desi Jr. often spent his weekends at the school located at Desilu Studios, alongside other child actors. Instead of playing freely or spending time in a backyard, he sat near costumes, lights, and props, memorizing multiplication tables. His school life and work life blended together until it became difficult for him to separate fiction from reality. The studio felt more familiar than home. As he grew older, he began to feel like a background character in his own family. He watched his parents play a loving, happy couple on television while dealing with tension and pain behind closed doors. That contrast affected him deeply. Even at a young age, he became unusually aware of how different appearances could be from the truth. By the time he was 5 years old, Desi Jr. was already exposed to adult problems. He witnessed intense arguments between his parents, especially after his father lost $50,000 gambling in 1956. That moment shattered the perfect image of family life he had believed in. Instead of warmth and safety, he felt anxiety and emotional distance. His parents were struggling to protect their public image while their private relationship fell apart. All of this happened while millions of viewers watched them every week, unaware of what was happening inside their home. For Desi Jr., the experience created confusion and sadness that he carried with him for years. At 12 years old, he was pushed into fame once again. In 1965, he joined a music group called Dino, Desi, and Billy, alongside Dean Martin's son Dino and their friend Billy Hinch. Almost overnight, the media labeled them a boy band built from famous Hollywood families. Their single I'm a Fool climbed to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, and fans screamed for them wherever they went. On the surface, it looked like an exciting success. Behind the scenes, however, Desi Jr. felt trapped. He wore oversized suits on stage so the audience would not realize how young he really was while playing the drums. The group sold more than 500,000 copies of their debut single in just 1 month, but he did not feel proud or happy. Later in life, he admitted that he had been pushed into the group by his father and felt he had little choice. While others saw success, he felt ignored and powerless. The fast rise came with serious consequences. In 1966, while touring as an opening act for the Beach Boys, Desi Jr. collapsed from heat exhaustion after performing a 90-minute set in Texas, where temperatures reached 100 degrees. He was rushed to the hospital. At only 13 years old, he was already working like an adult, performing multiple shows a day. The incident shocked fans and revealed how demanding and dangerous the entertainment industry could be for children. Despite the scare, his schedule barely slowed. Within days, his mother encouraged him to return to performing. Rest was not an option. The pressure to keep going never stopped. In 1968, at just 15 years old, Desi Jr. earned a Golden Globe nomination for his role in Red Sky at Morning. It should have been a moment of pure celebration. Instead, it came with mixed emotions. Many reviews compared his performance to Lucille Ball's style, pointing out similarities in timing and expression. While some saw it as praise, it made him feel invisible as an individual. No matter what he achieved, he was still viewed through the lens of his parents' fame. The nomination mattered, but it also reminded him how difficult it was to be recognized for who he truly was. The following year brought another major success. His song Silence is Golden reached number 1 on the UK charts and stayed there for 3 weeks. On paper, everything looked perfect. In reality, his life felt increasingly unstable. He missed so much school due to touring and recording that he failed algebra. As a result, he was subjected to strict tutoring sessions, often supervised by his mother. Instead of feeling supported, he felt punished and isolated. Education became just another obligation that fit around his career, rather than something meant to help him grow. He later said that those months made him feel like his childhood and education were being sacrificed to keep the celebrity machine running. Even at home, he often felt like a project that needed managing rather than a son who needed understanding. By 1970, the public's attention turned to his personal life as well. At 17, he began dating actress Patty Duke, who was 23 at the time. The age difference caused a media frenzy, and Lucille Ball strongly disapproved of the relationship. She monitored their phone calls and tried to control the situation. When Patty Duke became pregnant, the scandal grew even bigger. Fearing public backlash, she quickly married producer Michael Tell. The sudden end of the relationship devastated Desi Jr. It reinforced his belief that he had little control over his own life and that outside forces could easily take away what mattered to him. His career continued to shift in unpredictable ways. In the mid-1970s, he experienced a strange kind of peak when December 1963 reached #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 3 weeks. The song also topped the charts in Canada and the UK. Even though he did not sing lead vocals, he became the face of the promotion and appeared on Saturday Night Live with his father. From the outside, it looked like another triumph. Inside, he was struggling. He suffered from intense stage fright and often drank whiskey before performing, using alcohol to calm his nerves. It echoed the same coping habits his father had relied on. Fame continued to give him opportunities, but it also took something from him each time. After his first band ended in 1969, Desi Jr. joined another group in 1974 called PR Fool, later known as the Jokers. They toured with Neil Diamond and performed in front of large crowds. It seemed like a fresh start, but internal conflicts quickly took over. Desi Jr. developed a reputation for being difficult to work with. Some believed his behavior came from years of pressure and unresolved trauma. Others saw it as arrogance. Tensions grew, and by 1977, the group fell apart. Once again, industry magazines turned his struggles into gossip, putting his personal challenges on public display. That same year, he starred in the film Joyride, playing a reckless character driven by impulse and desire. The role felt uncomfortably close to his real life. 2 years earlier, he had been arrested for driving 110 miles per hour on Mulholland Drive, a moment that reflected his growing recklessness. The film followed a young man whose poor decisions pulled others into danger, mirroring the chaos Desi Jr. felt inside himself. By this point, the weight of lifelong fame, pressure, and expectations had taken a serious toll. What the public often saw as success was, for him, a constant struggle to understand who he was outside of his famous name and the spotlight he had never asked for. Audiences could feel something real and painful in his performances, as if he was not just acting but reliving parts of his own life. The emotions came across as raw and honest, and many people sensed that he was pulling from memories he had never fully escaped. The following year, he pushed himself even harder. In the film The Users, he played a jockey and insisted on doing his own stunts. During one scene, he was thrown from a horse and suffered a broken collarbone. The injury forced him to take a full month off to recover. Even then, he continued choosing roles that demanded a lot from him both physically and emotionally. It was almost as if he was trying to prove something, trying to step out from under the label of being known only as Lucille Ball's son. Each role felt like a challenge he needed to survive in order to feel like his own person. By 1980, Desi Jr. tried to come to terms with his complicated feelings about his past by producing a television tribute to his mother. On the surface, the special appeared warm and loving. He interviewed Lucille Ball about her life and career, and viewers saw a respectful son honoring a legendary mother. Behind the scenes, however, things were far more tense. Desi Jr. argued with producers about how honest the program should be. He wanted the audience to see the full picture, not just the success and smiles, but also the parts where his mother had been emotionally distant during his childhood. These disagreements revealed how tangled his emotions were. He loved and admired her deeply, but he also carried resentment and pain that had never been resolved. The special moved many viewers, but it also quietly exposed how heavy it was to grow up under constant attention and pressure in Hollywood. His life in the spotlight had begun before he understood what it meant, and the effects followed him everywhere. In 1982, he appeared in a television adaptation of The Last of the Red Hot Lovers alongside Tony Curtis, playing his son. It should have been a light and enjoyable opportunity. During one scene, he suddenly launched into a drum solo that was not planned at all. The moment came out of nowhere, filled with wild energy, and caught everyone by surprise. Audiences loved it, and critics praised the spark and intensity he brought to the role. Unfortunately, the show itself failed to attract strong ratings. Despite the positive attention he received, the series struggled and was eventually dismissed. Instead of opening new doors, the experience pushed him into a narrow category. Casting directors began to see him as the troubled child of famous parents, someone always trying to prove himself. He later said that those years were incredibly frustrating because he wanted people to see him as a serious actor, not just a famous name attached to old television history. He slowly learned that connections alone were not enough. Without steady success, it was difficult to break free from expectations. In 1983, he tried again with a science fiction series called Automan. He played Walter Nebuchar, a computer expert in a show filled with special effects that were advanced for the time. Early computer graphics gave the series a futuristic feel and attracted a loyal group of viewers. However, the technology was expensive, and production costs rose quickly. The network became nervous about the budget, and after just 13 episodes, the show was cancelled. For Desi Jr., the cancellation felt especially painful. He understood better than most what happened when creative ambition clashed with financial pressure. He had grown up watching similar struggles at Desilu Productions, where his parents once fought to balance art, money, and public expectations. The end of Automan felt like another opportunity slipping away, not just for him, but for fans who believed in the show. He continued working, and by 1985, he was deeply involved in the production of the miniseries North and South. He played a Confederate officer and committed himself fully to the role. He used method acting and even joined historical reenactments to understand the mindset and emotional weight of the character. However, filming in the intense heat of Atlanta took a serious toll on him. One day, he collapsed during a scene, forcing production to shut down while he recovered. Later, he admitted that the physical heat was not the only reason he broke down. Old emotional wounds resurfaced whenever he pushed himself too hard or felt under constant observation. His parents' explosive divorce in 1960 had left scars that returned during moments of stress. He said it often felt like he carried their arguments with him, no matter where he went. That collapse forced him to rethink his limits and recognize that pushing himself endlessly could destroy him. A few years later, in 1990, he made a guest appearance on The Simpsons, where he used humor to make fun of his own fame and struggles. It was a rare chance for him to laugh at himself and allow others to laugh with him rather than judge him. Around the same time, he was offered a role in a biographical project about his mother. He chose to turn it down. He said the role would reopen wounds he had spent years trying to heal. The comparisons, the attention, and the emotional weight were more than he wanted to face again. Saying no was a sign that he had finally learned how to protect himself. By 1992, he stepped away from major acting roles after portraying his father in The Mambo Kings. The role was meaningful, but emotionally confusing. A few years later, in a 1995 interview, he shared that his 20-year career had earned him around $5 million, but cost him a normal life. He compared his own success to living under the massive shadow of his mother's $40 million legacy. The money never made up for the pressure, the stress, or the family moments he lost. Being typecast, constantly judged, and living with expectations became part of the price he paid from childhood onward. The deeper struggle began long before his acting career slowed. By the age of 15, he was already attending Hollywood parties and experimenting with marijuana and LSD, encouraged by older celebrities who treated it as normal. By 1970, he found doctors willing to write prescriptions for Quaaludes in exchange for cash. After his band broke up in 1969, he fell into a deep sense of emptiness, and drugs became a way to fill the silence. Addiction followed him through his late teens and early 20s, becoming a pattern that felt impossible to escape. In 1972, his engagement to Liza Minnelli ended suddenly when she left him for someone else. The breakup happened quickly and very publicly. Although he later explained that the relationship had already been unstable, the loss hit him hard. He spiraled into heavy cocaine use that lasted for weeks. One night, he rented a Ferrari, lost control, and crashed it into a hotel fountain. Police were ready to arrest him, but his mother stepped in quietly and made the situation disappear. The crash revealed how chaotic his inner world had become, while the cover-up showed how desperate his mother was to protect the family image. He tried again to build stability when he married Linda Pearl in January 1979. The marriage lasted only 6 months. His drug use worsened, and during a performance in Las Vegas, he hallucinated on stage and destroyed his drum kit in front of a stunned audience. Linda later said their marriage had been overwhelmed by tension, addiction, and his refusal to slow down. The divorce became another painful reminder of how deeply drugs had affected his personal life. By 1981, when he was only 28, doctors showed him a brain scan and told him it looked like the brain of someone much older. Years of cocaine, LSD, Quaaludes, and other substances had taken a serious toll. He fell into severe depression and attempted to end his life by overdose. Lucille Ball found him and begged him to seek help, her voice filled with fear. He entered detox and began a long, difficult road toward recovery. Therapy forced him to face wounds he had never learned how to describe. He spoke openly about how his mother's punishment was often silence. Days would pass with no words, no affection, just emotional absence. Therapists explained that this behavior shaped his understanding of love and self-worth more than he realized. After marrying Amy Laura Bargel in 1987, his life slowly gained more stability. Still, the damage from childhood lingered. The pain had started early. When his parents divorced in 1960, he was only 7 years old. Years of loud arguments had already left him anxious and afraid. He even overheard his mother accusing his father of cheating, a moment that stayed with him for decades. Soon after the divorce, Life magazine staged a perfect family photo, forcing smiles while lawyers fought over custody behind closed doors. He felt torn between two parents who valued public image while asking him to pretend nothing was wrong. His father's alcoholism made things worse. In 1965, on the night of his first major band performance, his father was absent, gambling in Las Vegas instead. That moment broke something inside him. His mother responded by tightening control over the family image. Inside the home, everything continued to fall apart. There were a few bright memories, like music lessons with his father, but they were rare. In 1970, he visited his father and found him surrounded by empty bottles and silence. He recognized the same loneliness in his father that he feared in himself. In 1971, his mother grounded him after rumors embarrassed her publicly. She locked away his drums and lectured him about legacy and reputation. He felt punished for simply being young. 4 years, he carried guilt, believing that his birth had somehow caused his parents' divorce. His sister later revealed that he had confessed this belief privately. The fear of abandonment followed him well into adulthood. Healing took time. In the mid-1980s, he helped guide his father into treatment, an act that saved his life and gave them a final period of closeness before his father died in 1986. In 1987, Desi Jr. moved away from Hollywood to Boulder City. There, he and his wife restored an old theater and turned it into a non-profit community space. When it reopened, it was filled with real people and genuine warmth. It gave him a sense of purpose he had never felt in fame. In later years, he spoke openly about his past. He admitted that his addictions were cries for attention and love. He remembered the simple words his parents used to explain their divorce, words that still hurt decades later. He also shared that his father's final words, telling him "I love you, son," healed parts of him that had been broken since childhood. Today, he uses his life as a lesson, encouraging others to choose family over fame, love over applause, and honesty over image.